right, thank you for staying with Monday Report. Let's see some of your feedback that you're bringing up at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Hashtag Monday Report. There's so many, I won't be able to go through all of them, but I'll try as much as possible to squeeze them in. Kimani Shungu, again, a member of Parliament for Kikuyu, says now that it's true what Kwame Wino puts it. Parliament has had a role to play, and we must appreciate that the legislature is also under capture. Listen to the budget committee comprised of Jubilee and ODM members today, and you will agree parliamentary democracy is equally under threat. So he agrees with you. But earlier on there was another tweet from an individual that talked about the increasing the wealth. Eddie Pragu says increasing the wealth tax could play a good role in settling the public debt as well as mitigating corruption. Do you agree? Dr. Kiru, start with you on that.
In terms of policy, if you earn more in Kenya, you pay more.
Yeah.
Now, it can only make a difference in what is in terms of increasing the public kitty if you talk about reducing tax evasion by the wealth or dealing with tax evasion and increasing the tax bracket.
Yeah.
That could make a difference in what you're saying. But in terms of the wealth tax, you earn more, you pay more. That's how it is as we speak.
Okay. Let's bring up the next one here, see what you're saying on Twitter. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Monday Report. Kevo Wodadori says the best way is harmonizing taxation and ensuring that there's a tax relief. We should minimize the input and maximize the output. We should also vote wisely, otherwise this hashtag of lower food prices is just bad for the public gallery. And Kwame, that's an interesting perspective there. How then can the government generate revenue without overburdening the people?
Well, I think it's just a proper design of tax systems, as Joy said.
Yeah.
My view is not, I actually think that the government of Kenya does not have a problem of taxation and revenues. Okay. It's a problem of spending. So for instance, let's even talk about projects. And I think we've had, as Kenyans, we've had an earful about the SGR, but let's talk about the superhighway, right?
Yeah.
The 28 kilometers superhighway from the airport all the way to Westlands. When that road was first designed, leave aside the logic, when that road was first designed, the initial design was supposed to be 16 billion. 14 point something, 14.6 billion or some figure, but definitely less than 20 billion. Today, it's not complete, and the amount that has been dedicated to it is 83 billion. So how in the course of 2.5 years does the cost of one piece of infrastructure move 5 times? From 16 billion to 83. There's just something about the way construction is done. It's as if we did not learn from the SGR, which was required, but the cost of the SGR means that it's going to be a burden to the taxpayers for too long. So the problem is not revenues. Kenyans, and I know, of course, there are problems with evasion and all that, but I don't think it's as large as sometimes we are made to believe. Okay. I actually think that if you have spending as if there's money grows on trees, as this government has done and has been enabled by Parliament, then you'll always have this shortage of money to be able to do the more essential things. So for instance, this year, 40,000, I think it's 40,000 university students will not be able to receive the subsidy that is due to them in order to be able to pay their fees. And the loans that are required for the Higher Education Loans Board. So every important thing is underfunded, except for huge infrastructure projects, and most of these huge infrastructure projects are overpriced. So that's the point. So it's not really about whether Kenyans pay taxes or how much.
Yeah.
We can cover holes, but I think that if you're spending money at this rate, so let me give an example. So for instance, this year, the government expects to spend 3.2 trillion, right? Which is about 10 billion per year. The amount of taxes that is going to 10 billion per day, but the amount of taxes that's being collected per day is 6 billion or thereabouts. What that means is that for this year, if you count the calendar year from January to February, all the money that will be collected for the taxes that Kenyans pay will be over by 15th of August. And then the rest of the time, the government will be paying money from debt.
Yeah.
That's it. You cannot live like that. I mean, whichever way it happens, you cannot live like that without getting into trouble. So I'd like Kenyans to believe, we can have a discussion about this, but my belief is not the absence of taxation or enough revenue. And the Revenue Service, the Kenya Revenue Authority, does quite a good job. But if Parliament allows the executive to spend on every new toy that they want to, we'll always be in this kind of trouble.
So we should cut spending, that's what you're saying?
Well, right now we cannot do it too aggressively. Obviously, wastage can be cut. But the first thing that we need actually is to cap spending and ask yourself, what is this money being spent on?
Okay. So, Dr. Kiru, are we simply then living beyond our means? That's...
Yes. We are, like now, I saw a budget of about 3.2
trillion, yes.
Trillion, right? Against 11 trillion GDP. You are planning to spend 30% of your GDP in about 12 months. Something is not right there. You are over budgeting.
Yeah.
Absorption capacity. That is why, and I think what they do is they over budget on paper. And somehow they find a way of spending in a wasteful manner. That really has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, 30% of your GDP in 12 months, even in a lay person's, it's too much money for the economy, right?
Yeah.
It's too much money for the economy. And that really needs to be, we need to ask ourselves, if that is too much money for the economy to absorb, no wonder the cost of living is just going up. Economics 101, too much money chasing too few goods. The production incentives are not there in the first place. And we're planning to spend more and more. What are we buying with this money if not just raising up prices for everything going up? So the point is, we need to rethink and remove wastage.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring up another tweet here. Orutswa Sam says the only solution to manage public debt is by having the right leaders in power who can stabilize the economy to enable it to generate enough revenue from domestic market in terms of taxes, investments, generating revenue, and reduce corruption. All right, let's bring up the next one. See what you're saying before we get into the video questions. Katzutu says, I agree with Kwame on sugar industry. A great problem we have in the agriculture sector is productivity per acre. If we don't deal with land policy to stop subdividing agricultural land, sugar will never be competitive. It's cheaper per hectare in Sudan because of economies of scale. I believe that's what he wanted to say. All right, let's see what else you're saying here. On Twitter, Okitalia Mwan says, our troubles with high cost of living will end the time that everybody and government will prioritize investing in production and manufacturing rather than just importing and reducing imports. All right? We'll see about that in just a bit. Let's see what else is coming up. Hope Adero says the discussion on the cost of living can't be complete without questioning consumer behavior as well. It's a complex nexus of policy, technology, and societal factors. Do you want any reaction on that? Is that true? Hope is saying that this is the issue here. Let's bring it back.
Okay. Well, I'm reluctant to tell a Kenyan who's earned money that they should not buy sugar, they should not buy diapers for their kids, or they should not buy fuel and everything else. I'm not too sure that the consumer should be blamed here.
Yeah.
Because if you earn the money, you have the option to actually save it. If you have to leave, remember, the data shows that 44% of Kenyan incomes are spent on food. So Kenyans work really hard to just be able to afford food. So if the price of food is going up, it's hurting people. So I won't blame the consumer here. It's you can't blame the victim. If they're loaded with goods, including basic items today which have some element of taxation, and government is also taxing them through consumption and taxing them through their income. Obviously, that's going to squeeze budgets in a way that would lead to a legitimate question right now about lowering the prices of food. Or how do we get...
As experts, Dr. Kiru, is our debt within sustainable and tolerable limits?
Our debt, we already are at risk of debt distress. It's very high. So meaning that anybody talking about borrowing more money than what we have now is leading Kenya on the wrong path. The debt is almost becoming unsustainable. And for what? There's no reason you should be in that place. We should just check on what is eating us, development projects that we never mean to complete, all those white elephants that you see along, all these of our budgeted infrastructure projects. Those things really need to be dealt with. We need to have the law really take its power and find out who is robbing this country, because the point is, I think of lying in terms of prices or procuring from a less competitive person, or manipulating the supply market so that you procure from yourself one way or another, I think it's a crime, it's an economic crime and should be dealt with. Because that's where really the issue comes in. So yes, we are at risk, very bad risk. We cannot afford to borrow. The fiscal space for debt is finished. I pity the next government. Actually, we need to vote for somebody who is going to tell us what are we going to do to rein over debt. What are we going to do about infrastructure projects? Not remove them, no. But how do we budget them and carry them in the most efficient manner?
Yeah. Okay.
That's a person you want to vote for.
Okay.
Of course, like I agree with Kwame, we cannot afford austerity measures right now. That is reducing expenditures in terms of education, health. No, we cannot afford that. But for sure, we need somebody to talk the language of how to reduce and remove and deal with waste once and for all.
Yeah.
And mismanagement.
Okay.
That's a person we want to hear.
So Kwame, what do we do then? Because everybody who's looking to form the next government is still making wild promises. 50 billion shillings here and there, 6,000 shillings here and there.
I think that let's wait for the manifestos to be published, because as they say, it's an American saying that you campaign in poetry and govern in prose, which means that you campaign by singing a nice song, but when you actually have to, you now have to speak to Kenyans as adults. Whoever comes in is going to find the cupboard empty, as Joy has said. I mean, there's not much money to flush, even on people who think they're funding the campaigns of one or the other person, and then we'll get contracts. It'll be pretty tight. So that's what we have to wait for. But it's clear, regardless of what happens now, between now and August, there's not going to be any magic. Kenya is not going to discover suddenly huge amounts of petroleum that is available to pay our to pay those debts. So debt management is going to be, in my view, a medium term. And if it's not handled well, it's something we're going to have to be dealing with for at least a whole term of whoever gets elected, and perhaps even to the successor. But if there's one thing the Jubilee administration is giving, together with the parliament, they're giving their successors, it is a big, hairy economic problem to manage.
Okay. So when they make the promises, are they practical to you as an economist when you hear the promises being made left, right, and center?
No, I mean, some of them are not. Of course, you don't know how clear they are or how sure they are until they did it, because many of them are saying, well, we'll cut corruption so that we can do that. You have to know what the extent of corruption is, but you know, some of that corruption is actually something that doesn't get to a school, because a school was supposed to pay for bursaries, and that bursary was not made. So it's not as if that corruption, that money, even if you did, it would be saved. It's not available for other things. Are there places in which cuts can be made? Certainly. There's a lot of wastage in the public sector, and the Office of the Auditor General does it quite a lot. So in my view, whoever is prepared to go look at the audit accounts and actually to detect where money is being lost and being wasted from, and choose to close those loopholes, might make some space to be able to spend. But huge spending on new programs, that's not possible. Some of the infrastructure projects that has been here, to its credit, I think even the present administration has cut down on, I think, 300 or 400 infrastructure projects that were supposed to be made, because they have to prioritize now. Whoever comes in will probably have to keep that happening.
All right. Let me bring up some of the video questions and comments that you brought up as we wind up on this conversation. Let's bring them all up.
Jubilee government is the main cause of these problems that Kenyans are carrying on their shoulders. Jubilee government should be blamed at this time, because they have raised the high taxes to the mwananchi wa kawaida.
It is only fair in the sight of God for people to come and fear God and say, we are looking for ways to reduce the prices, the prices of goods, because people are suffering, Kenyans are suffering. Let us heed to this and let us fear God. Can we do something to change this situation that is affecting us?
So it is clear that the skyrocketing of borrowing has happened between 2018 to date. Some argue that it is as a result of the handshake. Who knows?
All right. Let's bring up some of your Twitter questions and comments before I take closing remarks from my guest here in studio. Let's bring that up. Kitur Rogers says, a country divided can never progress if we cannot agree on our common problems. What will unite us really? Okay, let's see what else you're bringing up. This as we close up on this conversation. Samuel Kimeo says, if Kenya has borrowed expensively, improperly used what it borrowed, Parliament is responsible. It has a constitutional mandate to check on the executive. Parliament must stop behaving as an extension of the executive, all right? Let's bring up the next one and see what you're saying here. CPA Alvin, all right, says, I have no problems with the debt Kenya has. My big question is, can the amount borrowed be fully accounted for as having been spent directly to project it was borrowed to finance? Okay. Let's see what else you're saying here as we wind up. Is Lenley Blind says, we are heading to tougher years. If agricultural land policy is not handled well, the land subdivision cannot sustain economic production. Okay. Bring up the next one here. We wind up on this. Yes, that's the last one I'll take. Roberto says, my question to the panelists, assuming things were done right from the word go, after how long do you forecast Kenya to stand back on its feet as far as the economy is concerned? That's where we wind up this conversation. Kwame, I'll start with you.
Okay. I think
how long will it take us to recover?
That's a good question. My view would be, I mean, Kenyans are looking to the elections. The only way we are going to take the difficult decisions that are required is if we have a president on the one side and a parliament that is prepared to check him and not be his cheerleaders as the last two administrations have been favored with. So obviously that's one. But debt problems usually take a while to wind. So in my view, we are still in this until this administration that comes in after that, maybe another 5 years, because the consequences of debt have to wind their way throughout the economy. We can't wish it away. So at the least, in my view, is 5 years. So at least a full term. So 2027, we're still dealing with our issues. Yes, I mean, the recovery will be stronger and more certain. Joy, closing remarks on this as you also respond to that?
Yes, I agree. It's going to take some time. Assuming that the next person does the right thing. And I haven't heard anybody who is articulating correctly how they're going to do right by Kenyans in terms of debt and fiscal management. I have not yet heard that. But assuming that they do things correctly, then we are talking about not less than 6-7 years to start talking like now we are getting at a comfortable place in terms of debt. All right. Yes. Right. Otherwise, if they trade the way they are trending at this part of the campaign, it's not good, especially if they implement what they are promising right now, as we are now. We have not seen the manifesto, but if they implement it like they are telling Kenyans and they want to warn Kenyans, if they may tell you this, but when they get to the office, it may not be possible to give you what they are promising at this time as we speak. It may not be possible. So don't be disappointed. Let them tell you the truth and don't be afraid of the truth. It's better you hear the hard truth and you know that your future is secured than be told all these nice things which will never happen and you end up more frustrated. Okay. Let's make the choice as Kenyans. All right. That's why we leave it for now. Dr. Joy Kiru, an economist, and Kwame Owino, CEO, Institute of Economic Affairs. Thank you so much for making time this evening. And thank you all for all the feedback. This is a conversation that still continues and still raging on online right now on the cost of living and rising food prices. We'll keep talking about it until solutions come up, all right? Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Trevor Mbija. It's always a pleasure having you with us. Have a great night ahead.